class about probability.
Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be learning about probability. Now, probability can be defined as the chance of a specific outcome occurring. And what we're going to be learning today is how to use fractions to describe these chances. Now, I've drawn a couple things or got a few things off the internet, and you're familiar with these because you've seen probability lines before. And these probability lines are used to show you or describe the chance of a specific outcome occurring. Way on the far end left of the scale, we have impossible. In the middle, we have equally likely. Most of the time, or in grades in the past, you've probably used the word possible to describe this. I prefer to use the word equally likely or an equal chance to describe it. So if it's possible, right in the middle, a 1 out of 2 chance, you have an equally likely chance of something occurring. And right on the end, you have certain. Okay, that means it's going to happen for sure. All right. There's another chart I got down here. I like this one more because this actually gives you the fractions that go along with the probability words. So right at the end there, we have impossible. So there's a 0% chance of something occurring. You've had questions like, for example, describe an impossible event, something that can't happen. You've probably seen, or what's the word I'm trying to use? You're probably given the example of maybe a dinosaur walking into the classroom. That's impossible. That can't happen. So there's a 0% chance of that happening. Now, over here, we have a 1/4 chance, or a 0.25, or 25% of something occurring, and that is unlikely. Right in the middle, there's your 50% chance of an event that is equally likely to happen. Something either happens or it doesn't. Over here, we have a 3/4 chance, or 0.75, 75%, which is likely to happen. So it's more likely to happen than not. And over here, we have 100%, which means it is for sure going to happen, or it is certain to happen. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go over a few examples of how we're going to use actually fractions to describe outcomes, or the probability or the chance of something occurring. So over here we have the numerator and the denominator. So on the top, the numerator represents the number of desired outcomes. Okay. And on the bottom, we have the total number of possible outcomes that can occur. Now, I got a spinner right here, and I wanted to show you how you're going to use fractions to actually describe the chance of certain things occurring. For instance, if you notice, we have, let me just brighten this up a bit. We have 8 numbers on the spinner. So if we're spinning a spinner once, and it's going to land on one of these numbers, your denominator is going to be 8 because you have a total of 8 possible outcomes. Now, if I said, okay, if you decided to spin this spinner, what is the chance that you're going to land on the number 7? Okay. Now, since there are 8 possible outcomes, that's going to be your denominator. And the desired outcome, okay, we want a 7, that's one of the actual 8 chances there, or one of the possible outcomes. So your fraction to describe the probability of spinning a spinner and landing on 7 would be 1/8. Okay, so 1 in 8 chance. And on that scale, it would be very unlikely. It would be less than the 1/4 chance. All right. Now, if I asked you to describe or use a fraction to describe the probability of spinning a 2 or a 3, okay, now the number of desired outcome changes because now we have two possible outcomes, okay, the 2 and the 3. So your new fraction would be 2 out of 8 because there are 8 possible outcomes and you can spin a spinner and either get the 2 or the 3. So that would be 2 out of 8. Now, what if I asked you, well, what are the chances of spinning an even number? Well, you'd have to count the even numbers on the spinner, and that would be 2, 4, 6, and 8. So there would be 4 possible outcomes out of 8. So it'd be 4 over 8. Now, if you took a decimal of that, or you converted the fraction to a decimal, 4 out of 8 would be 50%. So that would be an equally likely chance of that occurring, of you actually spinning an even number. Now we can also talk about the colors on this spinner. Okay, so what about the chance of spinning blue on the spinner? Now, since there are 3 blue sections to the spinner out of 8, it would be 3 out of 8. Now, if I ask you, what are the chances of you spinning either blue or yellow? Well, then you would have to count all of the blue and all of the yellow portions of this or sections of this image or this spinner, okay? And then that would be 5. So your top number would be 5. Your numerator would be 5 because that would be the number of desired outcomes because I asked you either blue or yellow. So that would be 5 out of 8. All right, that's how you would use a fraction to describe that probability. Now, we can use other things to describe probability, and you could use fractions as well. Now, here I have a loonie, and if I decided to, the game of heads and tails, here's heads, here's tails, and I ask you, well, what are the chances of flipping this coin and landing on heads? Okay, so again, how many possible outcomes are there? Well, there's 2. Okay, you could land on either heads or tails. So the denominator would be 2. Now, if I asked, well, what are the chances of landing on heads? That's one outcome that we want. So that's the one we want. So that would be 1 out of 2. So that would be a 1 out of 2 chance. Now, that 1 out of 2, half chance here, fits right there. Equally likely. Okay, and that occurs because there are only 2 possible outcomes, heads or tails, and 1 out of the 2 is the desired outcome. All right, I also have a bunch of little blocks here. Let me move this hat out of the way, it's kind of distracting. All right, so I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 blocks here, or cubes. Let me see if I can zoom out. All right, so I have 12 in total, and I have 1 green one, I have 3 white ones, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red ones, and 3 yellow. So if I had to ask you what are the chances of me, this is why I had the hat here, if I put all of those blocks into this hat, shuffled them around, and I randomly drew one. So I put my hand in, pulled out one of the cubes from the hat. What would be the chance of me getting a green cube? Well, how many green cubes are there in the set? Just 1. So that would be a 1 in 12 chance. Not very likely. And if I asked you what would be the most likely, what would you most likely pick out of the hat if you just randomly drew a cube? And that would be red, because there are 5 out of the possible 12. Okay, so 5 out of 12, that would be the actual fraction you would use to describe the probability of randomly drawing a red cube out of a hat. Now, if I asked you what about drawing either a white or a green one, since there are 12 in there, it would be 4 out of 12 because there are 3 whites and 1 green. And the 2 colors that are equally likely to be randomly drawn from a hat are the white ones and the yellow ones. And they both are would have the same fraction or the same probability of being drawn out of a hat, and that would be 3 out of 12. All right. So these examples I've given you right now should help you out with the homework. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be posting some images online, and what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to use fractions to describe the probability of certain things occurring, okay? And that's the lesson for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Make sure you do the work. I'll see you later. Operation, finish the work.